Warning, the show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and this is a show dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms. In a little good mood today because we're doing the show without driving. But today is about, it's episode 224. This is van life design, pros and cons, and I want to talk about my experience that I have in it, and a couple of things. To start out with, first of all, I'm really liking not having to drive and doing this. It's so distracting when you're driving, and the audio quality just sounds so good. I was just editing some videos, and my God, I wish I could just keep doing this. So, yeah, I want to talk to you guys about my experience of van life. And when I say van life, it's not necessarily just van life. There's people doing this in box trucks and stuff like that. I'd call mine maybe the truck life. For those of you watching the show, this is my F-350. This is my mobile studio. This is where I usually record my podcast on my work commutes. But behind me, you can see here, I'll move the camera. Well, I guess you can't. You got the back windows are tinted to reflect the light. But back there's my big old camper. And me and my daughters on my mini retirements, we live out of this vehicle. The back seat here is where my little daughter will sleep. Me and the oldest will sleep on the bed in the back. And we used to have our dog on the floor when she was alive and kicking. And I didn't live out of my van like consecutively like for an entire year or something. But I do have enough experience taking off on our adventures to kind of figure out some pros and cons of my own. And what's really fueling this is we just went to the Tiny Living event that they had here at the Del Mar Fairgrounds in 2021 here in San Diego. And I've got some recordings. I had my special needs daughter. For those of you who know my situation, it was really difficult to record, having to go in and go back out and change diapers and come back in and out. It just wore me out. But I was inspired by meeting a lot of different people, and hopefully we're going to have a couple on the show. A bunch of them said that they would love to be on here, so maybe we'll get their perspective as well. So let's jump into today. Where am I coming from is we've lived, I think the longest was about, I'd say about 8 weeks, not counting traveling. Well, I guess longer because about 2 months because we would have to travel back home. And in that time, what I've experienced was healthy foods. And that was one of the things that kind of bothered me, as it was actually a little better to buy foods that had preservatives and things in them, such as like, if you go to grocery stores that have pre-made like chicken asado or carne asada and like a tri-tip and stuff like that, canned beans. We had to get a lot of stuff that would last a lot longer. I got lunch meats, regular lunch meats that are non-GMO, no nitrates and all that kind of stuff added. But I still know that it's processed meat. It's not very healthy. And the scary part is those foods, when you looked at like the pollo asado, the Mexican chicken, it was like, it spoils in 60 days or something. So you know that there's something in there. Meat should not last that long. It tasted good, but our situation maybe is a little different because we go way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. So I had to really pack up because the next grocery store, anything, civilization was like a good at least hour and a half drive before we'd even get to a hospital or a grocery store or things like that. So, and it's a lot of work to drive these treacherous paths sometimes to the places we go to, cliffs and going over streams, and we're way the heck out there. So it's once you're set up, you don't want to pick up and go. So we'd load up in my solar powered refrigerator that I have in the back there. I've spoken about this on other shows, but yeah, so the food, I want to get more into that point because we don't have a lot of time. These shows are only supposed to be 15 minutes long, and I know I'm going to blow this one way out of proportion. I can't wait to see if the show ever takes momentum. If you guys are liking it out there, do like an hour and a half every day. I could totally do that. But anyways, that's a concern that I have. A lot of van dwellers, car dwellers, we'll call it rubber tramping. I put the van dwellers because that's the very popular. I think maybe some people, I'm sneaking you guys, right? I'm sneaking it in. Van dwellers is more popular than just rubber tramping, I believe. I don't know, but yeah, I think a lot of people hitting the road, they're always stopping at campsites. And if you're living on BLM land, For those of you who don't know what that is, that's government land. You can look up into it. It's places you could park for free. You will have to only stay there for a certain amount of time, maybe a week, 2 weeks, and you got to move on. Through my journeys, I've met a lot of interesting people who shared a little tip that I don't have in my notes here that I'll give to you guys. Any national park, if you're parked about 100, no less than 100 yards off a major highway, just off to the side, like in the grass or somewhere, it's completely legal. The rangers, the cops, they can't do anything about it. It's completely legal for you to actually camp there, you know. I don't know if you're going to live there, there's probably a different story, but yeah. So a lot of these people just driving along, and obviously they have some income, you know, which we're going to talk about. It's no problem for them. They can stop at, you know, Whole Foods and stuff like that. Depending if you eat organic, I guess is a problem. If you're eating paleo or vegan or vegetarian, I think is not really a problem. But if you're doing paleo, maybe organic, I would say, yeah, because there's a lot of places like Ralph's, Stater Brothers, and places where they just have minimal amount of organic foods. And I prefer to not eat pesticide-ridden food, especially for my children. But we got to do what we got to do when we do it. So, yeah, healthy food is definitely a pro and a con, I think, is food supply. When you're traveling, a lot of these people, and especially those little vans, the Sprinter vans, there's not a lot of room to really put a big enough pantry. If you're traveling by yourself, even then I would say, like, I would give you guys some advice on things that I look at sprouting. Get yourself like some peas to sprout, sprouting jars with the lids on them and things like that. They don't need to be, they don't need light. You can put them in a dark place. And you basically just take vegetable seeds, herbs. You can sprout almost anything. Sprout these like mung beans. You guys had those, the long, clear, opaque looking ones. You can put those inside of a jar, alfalfa, and it'll sprout up. You'll put like maybe, say, a quarter cup into a quart-sized jar. The whole entire jar will be full of greens. And you can have this in a matter of like 5-6 days, depending on temperature and things like that. But that's a way that you can kind of produce a lot of your own food while you're living the van life. Is it going to sustain you? I don't think so. It's not like you're going to live off of this, especially having those confined spaces. So that's a con that I look at, and I'd love to hear what the guests and those of you who are living on the road, what you guys do to produce your own food, because a lot of the message for this show is moving you guys from consumer to producer, especially with these hard times with inflation and things like that. So that's one of the cons that I see. And also just like really healthy, I guess it's on the same lines, is like being able to grow a lot of your own food. So if you're going to live a van life, you know, a rubber tramp for a long time, it just seems like you never really have a place to sit down and actually grow stuff. So I think that we can substitute these things when you learn to forage. And that would be a pro, I would say, while you're doing van life. You can drive to some place like Oregon and get morel mushrooms and things like that, and blueberries when they're harvested, like wild. So I do have a preparedness show coming up next for rubber tramping van dwellers. The next show, we're going to kind of go into that. So yeah, healthy food, exercise I look at here. If you're van life, man, and you're not really, you don't have a house and everything. I think I don't have that on here, but that's definitely the pro, is a lot of people are doing this because they're completely free. We like to talk about alternative lifestyle designs on the show, and that's definitely one. Like, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm tired, I'm stressed out, I'm out. So I see as exercise, like, dude, you could be running and like in new places all the time. You can kind of still do it like where I live, but you are limited. I mean, there's tons of parks and stuff, places I don't know if I can run out and get every single one of them in my vicinity. In my alternative lifestyle design, where I stationary live in an RV and have been living this way for I think like 5 years now. But I've placed myself strategically where I'm in the middle of everything. I got the ocean, the mountains, the deserts and stuff. So it's just within an hour's drive, I'm in the desert. Half hour's drive, I'm at the ocean. 20-minute drive, I'm up in the mountains. But I get different areas to run around and have adventures. So, but nothing like van living. So moving forward, before we eat up too much time, I think residual income is key. You guys are going to see on that video that I'll post for you guys too about the Tiny Living Festival. And that's what a lot of people did. They're relying on YouTube, basically any kind of internet business that they can do. And that's where I look at that's the key. If anybody was considering van living, because it's one of my alternatives. I think I've talked about this on the show before. If shit really hits the fan for me and my daughters, you know, there's no help for us, especially these families. So if we had to, we're going to live in this truck and we're going to go traveling around. So I need a residual income is my problem though. I'm very successful at what I do, but I'm starting to transition, and we talked a lot about on the show of how to pivot. And a lot of my pivoting is going from having a physical business out here of construction to moving to stuff online. And that takes a lot of time, a lot of education, and a lot of trial and error. But I would recommend anybody who's thinking living van life, instead of just stopping at different places like washing dishes and stuff like that, although we did meet a gentleman who said he does that, it would be a lot more convenient for you and conducive, I would say, to get an online business of some sort, anything that you can work remotely, and get that down and make sure that you have backup plans for that. And then you're mobile to go anywhere. So yeah, that would be one of the keys that we're using. This time's going by way too fast, man. I could really go long on this one. Being harassed is a con that I look at. And that was for us. There was one time, I'll tell you guys a quick story. I was driving with my girlfriend at the time, and we were going between California and Oregon, and we went and slept in a field way in the back. We just had our car. We were driving for a good 12, 13 hours, and we were tired, and I'm so cheap, and I've done it before, sleeping out in tents and in fields and stuff like that. She never did, but we set up, and there was some guys that started coming towards our way. Hey, you guys broke down? And we were like, no, we're cool, man. We're just tired. We're going to bed. And like, yeah. So I feel sorry for them. I feel like a dick for what I did, but I was a little nervous. I was like, nah, man, we don't want to be bothered. We're just going to sleep. And they just kept walking up. I was like, oh shit, what is this? So they walked up, and my girlfriend's kind of freaked out, like, oh God. I just went and stuck, I don't know if I should be telling this story. I guess so, I don't give a fuck. Stuck a K-bar hunting military knife just in my pants, my front, just in case, you never know. And dude started walking up, and I was like, hey man, we're just tired. We're going to go to bed. Like, you guys want to drink some beers or smoke some weed, whatever? And I was like, nah, man, we just want to be left alone. And then one guy started walking to the right, and that's when I tripped out. And I don't think I was overreacting. But I just took a step back to keep both of them in my peripheral, and then I just opened up my jacket, and I says, hey man, we're tired. We're just going to be going to bed, and we don't need any extra trouble. And I looked at him. I says, I don't think I said anything. I just looked at him, and then I looked down real quick, and I put my hand on my knife. I just pointed it with my finger, and I looked at him. What's the next move? I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He was like, oh. And when I stared at him, he was stoned, poor guy. Again, I don't even know if I should be telling the story, but it might be exciting for people. And guy got really scared. I don't fucking blame him. I was kind of scared though. I was like, why are these dudes moving around? You should stay in the same spot, I don't know if they're going to try something silly, but they ended up leaving us alone regardless, to make a long story short, and they walked away, and we set up our tent and went to sleep. I never got bothered, but that was only one time too, and it wasn't really just a couple of stoners, like I said, I really feel awful for scaring the shit out of them. But I don't think you do stuff that way. You should, announce yourself and kind of be a little more friendly. I guess if you're high, you're not really thinking that way. But yeah, I've heard a lot of people. I've met people at my beach where I go running. If you guys watch my extra footage on Instagram, that's my Pano Beach. That's where I go. That's my beach. I clean that beach up. And I've met a lot of van dwellers there, and some of them told me, they'd see my truck and they're like, wow, you're a dweller, rubber tramp too. I said, no, I just live here, and working out of my truck. That's where I edit my videos and stuff like that and get exercise. But a lot of them said the cops, there was a German family. That's really cool. They get, what is that called? Maternal leave. And I think they got like 2-3 months of maternal leave. So they decided to rent a car here in the United States, and we're driving around, and they slept by the beach, and the cops knocked on their windshield, with the lights. Hey, you guys can't stay here. You got to keep moving. So that kind of sucks. The people just had a brand new baby, and they were really cool people. I loaned the guy my longboard. He never surfed before, or he had a shortboard, and the waves aren't too conducive that day. So gave him my longboard so he can go out surfing. He really had a great time. Made some friends, really cool people. But that's the con that I look at is if you are going to do those type of things, you kind of got to be ready to be harassed at points. Again, I'd like to have people on here who full blown do it. But yeah. My last note here is my perfect dream plan for rubber tramping for van life. And damn it, we're all out of time. I don't like doing these shows so short, guys. Let me know how I'm doing, by the way. If this show gets traction, then I'm going to start doing longer ones, because I really like doing podcasts here. But mine basically, to wrap it up, and I may turn this into a bonus, what do they call that? I don't know, a bonus one I could put on the Facebook group, which is Up and In It. On Facebook, it's private. I'm trying to gauge to see if people like this kind of things. But let me just go into it very quickly here to eat up the last few minutes. Is that my plan, in short, would be to educate myself. Like what I'm doing right now is I'm making videos of how I'm growing my own food preservations, maybe this podcast, my videos. A lot of stuff is kind of showing, it's like a resume, right? Of like, I know how to can foods, I know how to forage, I know how to fish, and I know how to repair things, build things, garden, and you know, breed plants and save seeds and all this kind of thing. So basically that in a nutshell, what my dream plan would be is to actually have destinations in eco-villages, intentional communities, meaning, for those of you who don't know, you drop-offs, is that, just kidding, by the way, is that these people have like farms and stuff like that already set, and they have communities, they have a bunch of people living there, but a lot of these people need people to come during the harvest seasons, you know, to help pick stuff and things like that. But what I found going around to different communities, they loved me because when I came in, I was like, okay, we do need to pull weeds and stuff like that. And I just kind of looked and I was like, I just got a quick question before you have someone like me pull weeds. When's the last time you checked the batteries on the solar system? Because everything was running off solar. They're like, oh, I can't remember. And I was like, all right, well, come with me. If you want to get everybody set, just hear me out first, you know, to the community leader, the owner. And we go back and I'd note, sure enough, there's a bunch of battery acid starting to come out and everything. They never checked the water. So I said, just a suggestion, maybe you would employ me instead of picking weeds, which is something very simple. Why don't you have me check these batteries, you know, fill them up with distilled water, the cells and everything so the plates aren't exposed. Let me get some baking soda and water, 7-Up, and clean off the terminals, take them apart, clean them, make sure everything's all flush, check all the connections and all that kind of stuff like that. If you got your rain system, that's your rain gutters that are capturing water, I can get up there and clean those things and make sure everything's tilting and draining perfectly. And that's exactly what they said. Wow. Oh my God. So needless to say, they were like, any fucking time you want to come and help us, go ahead and do that. So, I mean, they were really, really excited to have me. So that's what we did. I had the experience. I've had the experience of talking to a fellow in Kauai when I was hired out there to fix a roof. And all I did was talk to him about permaculture. And I looked at his land and I looked at a project he did. And just by eyesight, I could tell that his systems were off tilter. So he was surprised, saying, wow, how did you see that? Did you have a leveler or something? I says, no, I just got down and kind of saw. I says, no disrespect. But once he saw what I knew how to do, and I noticed all the things like the snail shells all over the garden and the cardboard blowing out in the wind and how he can fix stuff like that, he, just off an hour's conversation, he says, if you ever need a place to live, no charge, I want you on my farm. Come live with me for free. So that's where I look at as my key plan would be to travel around. So you're not sleeping at BLM lands. I mean, on your ways, you know, sleeping on the street, getting your ass. If you can get a whole bunch throughout the United States and just kind of Johnny Appleseed it, that would be my dream. And I'd love to talk more about that. I already know it's in the bag. It's going to work. I've even done it over Facebook. I just talked to a couple of permaculturists and they can tell by the way I'm talking to the things that I suggest or that, you know, the interactions, they were like, no, this guy knows his shit. So good things to know. That's my plan. Let me know, guys. It's upandinitshow@gmail.com. If you guys want to really, for me to go detail about my dream, that my backup plan, I'm super excited. I mean, I may just choose to do that beyond everything else. Sounds less stressful, right? So guys, that's the show. If you like this sort of thing, let me see, am I missing something here? It's on Instagram, TikTok. By the way, Instagram, I've been posting every day. I'm going to do it once a week because I don't want to eat up my bandwidth on my phone. So I take you guys, I just do like a walk and talk thing, walkie-talkie or something. I don't even know what to call it yet, but I just try to tell you what's, you know, do an extra show that's live. It's usually early in the morning when I'm walking. So check that out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere else that you guys could find these on the podcast. The Facebook, I did post a couple of premium, I called it, like extra material on. It's basically what I didn't get to say on the podcast, on the show like this one today. Sometimes I'll ruminate over it and then go, you know, I wish I would have said this. So I'll go into the Facebook group, the private group, and I'll post another video there just for extra stuff for you guys. So it's very time consuming, but again, I love doing it. So guys, if I brought you value, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, thumbs down, middle finger. I don't give a shit. Any suggestions, upandinitshow@gmail.com. And as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near life experience, my friends. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire, human up, live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.